Did you know that 55% of working Americans would choose a lower-paying job to work under a leader who inspires their brilliance? In today's fast-paced world, resilience isn't just a trait, it's a superpower. If you're feeling overwhelmed by life's pace with hurry and worry, struggling to find a way, discover the secret with Simon T. Bailey's bestseller, Resilience at Work, How to Coach Yourself into a Thriving Future. Get your copy today on Amazon and unlock your full potential.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
This is WBNW 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, how can you ensure that your kids' inheritance can be protected from future divorces?
Well, estate planning, as you know, does things like avoid probate, protect assets from nursing homes, and reduce taxes. But you know what? The family behind the estate plan can be more important. And so the trusts live on after you die, and you can have language in there that divides the assets to the children, but doesn't just pay it out, right? It holds it in trust for them and allows them to be trustee, but just not take it. In order to get it, they have an independent trustee that can say yes or no. And that way, by not owning the asset, if they get divorced, divorce down the line after you're dead and the other side says, hey, I want half of what's in that trust, you're going to say, that's great, but you have to ask the independent trustee. So it's now not going to be available to you. And more than just the ability to say no, it's the fact that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, it's not a marital asset to begin with. So it should not be even subject to the divorce. So learning how your trust works after you die can oftentimes be more important than when you're living. And it does more for you after you die than when you're living sometimes.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Another week here on the Financial Exchange. Shortened trading week as markets will be closed in observance of Good Friday. So it is a 4-day trading week this week. What do we have on tap? Starting to get into earnings season, also some economic data as well. Economic data that, we're going to be paying attention to. Retail sales on Wednesday. This is a big one, quite honestly, simply because the previous retail sales numbers the last couple months haven't been very good. The expectations are for this one to be, kind of knock your socks off. Awesome for a couple reasons. First one, last week we already got, or maybe it was a week and a half ago now, I can't even remember. We got auto sales numbers for the month of March, and they were through the roof as people tried to
front-run tariffs.
I don't think you really stock up on cars in advance of tariffs because
it's effectively what's happening, though.
It's kind of, but you only need one. It's not really a stocking. It's replacing. So,
but I did speak to somebody over the weekend who planned to need to replace a car within the next 18 months and said, I'm doing it now, and they did.
So I do expect the numbers to be high there. The question that I think I'm going to be looking at from my perspective is, hey, when you're not looking at auto sales, what are you seeing for the more discretionary items that are out there? And remember, this is going to be distorted, but I guess my message is more or less, hey, if this number does not have a robust bounce back, then you got a real problem. Then you got a real problem. But again, the auto number is going to be so monstrous, I think. Like the auto number, the auto number month over month. Can we just give? Can we do a little prediction wall, Tucker?
Sure. Oh boy.
Remember the big spike that we saw back in, I think it was either November or December of last year, was a 2.8% month over month jump in auto sales. I'm going to go with 6.5%.
Wow. I won't offer a prediction because I had no real opinion beforehand, and so I just
so what? I didn't have an opinion beforehand either. Okay. I just made this up just now.
4.
For what? Percentage points or 4 cars?
4 percentage points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not 0.2 or
no.
Okay.
Just
nice
an
and
even
boring.
4.
All right.
In either case, the retail sales numbers, to your point, important because we saw a slowdown, important because we've seen a real souring on sentiment from consumers, and so does that play out in spending numbers, or Do you actually have some front running happening here with purchases and some purchases being pulled forward, especially as you mentioned, the auto sector is so all important to these numbers because they're such big ticket items.
But other little things that you want to see in the retail sales data? Hey, they include restaurants in there. Are we seeing any evidence that people are starting to pull back on restaurant spending as they're doing this other, surge of spending? Stuff like that is going to be interesting to me.
Earnings-wise, still heavily financial.
I still have more economic data first.
Oh, well, fine.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So we've got NAHB Housing Market Index. That is on Wednesday as well. Thursday, we got building permits and housing starts as well as jobless claims, and that's basically it. So it's, again, not a huge week for economic data, but a few things that are going to be kind of interesting, marginally, of value to us.
The earnings schedule is mainly heavy in the financials. You've got Goldman Sachs that reported this morning, Bank of America, Citigroup going tomorrow, PNC as well. Non-financials, we've got Johnson & Johnson reporting tomorrow morning before the bell. ASML is reporting this week, Abbott Laboratories. So, again, some bigger, well-known names outside
Netflix on Thursday.
Outside of the I don't have them Thursday.
They are Thursday.
They are Thursday. You're right. After the bell, I wasn't seeing it. My apologies.
American Express also, I'm going to be kind of interested to see what AXP is telling us just because, look, the growth engine, or one of them in the last 6 months, the back end of last year, was high-end consumers still spending money.
Yep.
Is American Express telling us, hey, that's still what we're seeing? People are, the spending is robust, or are they starting to see, some signs of wavering and things shifting a little bit? So that's what we're going to be looking for this week as we start to get, again, some economic data and earnings coming through. The next 2 weeks are the big ones for earnings. The last 2 weeks of April is when I think we have about 60% of S&P 500 companies reporting earnings. So that's going to be, again, a week from now, we'll be talking about, hey, we got Apple this week, we got Meta this week. Those are, all on deck. And certainly we're going to be, wanting to hear what companies are telling us about their future prospects for earnings more than how was Q1.
I feel as though we are going to speak heavily about tariffs on today's program because there have been changes over the weekend, but I do feel as though this is the first program we've done in about a week and a half that is not exclusively about tariffs.
Yes. We'll try to keep it to
that's exciting.
We'll try to keep it to somewhere in the ballpark of 10%. The standard tariff rate is what we're going to try to do for time of show.
I can almost guarantee we're closer to half, but yeah.
Well, fine, you can do that. I'll just do something else. It's fine. It's not really a big deal. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw over the weekend. So on Friday, Customs and Border Patrol posted to their website basically a list of exceptions to the China tariffs, and really to all of the tariffs, not specifically China, but it really was the China ones that matter most.
Yeah.
And included in there, semiconductors, computers, laptops, tablets, like smart devices, those kinds of things.
Consumer electronic devices were included in this pretty heavily as a seeming carve-out for Apple.
Correct. So you have that on Friday night. Like I think it was like 4:30. It was after the close. I don't even know exactly when, but that's when people picked up on this. Was like, oh, like Saturday morning, you had all of the wires going out. Like, oh, here's what's going on. Sunday, you have Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, on a couple of the morning shows, and he basically says, this is temporary. We're actually going to impose tariffs on these things, but we just needed to get our ducks in a row before we impose sector-specific tariffs on these. But we are going to tariff these, so don't think that this is permanent.
Right.
The president then posts to Truth Social basically something to the same effect, saying, yes, this is not how it's going to be. We are going to have, a permanent tariff in place on semiconductors and computers going forward. So you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, so which one is it going to be? And specifically, the place where you run into problems on this is, again, if you're a company that's in this space, you kind of sit here and you go, what am I going to actually do? And there's some that obviously in certain areas, look, you've already had, some onshoring of semiconductors with all the fabs that have been going up the last few years.
We had the CHIPS Act last year, which was more of a carrot than a stick.
But we've talked a lot about how, look, if you're trying to bring semiconductor production back to the U.S., it's a 10-year process from start to finish of planning, design, approval, and building and operation of a fab. You don't just go from start to finish in 6 months. It's a long process to get there. So I think that when we look at this, it's once again trying to figure out, hey, how long are these policies going to be in place, and what is the incentive structure, and is that incentive structure enough to cause companies to shift their CapEx plans to more U.S. development versus the status quo?
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time pondering what may be announcement that could come as soon as this week on these types of products, but
sure,
it would seem to me that it would make some sense to follow a path that Bessent had kind of paved during, I think, the early stage of the administration, or maybe earlier on than that during the campaign trail, which was, hey, for some of these industries where it is not an overnight snap your fingers and jobs can return, having an escalating schedule of tariffs that are put into place well ahead of time to give companies at least a playbook to say, okay, I know what my import rate is going to be today, a year from now, and 5 years from now. And I also think that would be much tougher for another president, whoever is in the White House next, to say, hey, we're walking this back, if it was put together intelligently and organized in a fashion in which you say, okay, we're giving businesses a real incentive here to return that manufacturing to the United States. Don't know that that's what we're going to get, but it kind of falls into that category. It also would hint to me that if that is how it goes, there are probably other industries that fall into a similar category that might have a compelling argument, right? You don't need 3 years in advance to set up a sock manufacturer in the United States.
How much do you need?
Probably not that much. I don't know, but I'm guessing a fraction of the time required to set up semiconductor manufacturing is the answer. But each industry, each type of product that you might want built here in the United States follows a different schedule there, and this might be a precursor to several different industry-specific tariffs that could be rolled out. I'm completely guessing at this stage, though, so I don't think it's worth going beyond that.
I asked ChatGPT how long it takes to build a sock factory, just because, wondering about it. This is what it kicked back to me. The planning and design phase is typically 2 to 6 months. Construction, another 6 to 12. And that is for a mid-size factory of somewhere 10,000 to 50,000 square feet of socks.
So it sounds like I'm looking like 18 months minimum to get
equipment
built.
Installation and testing 2 to 4 months. Hiring and training workers another 1 to 3 months. So 9 to 18 months is kind of what we're looking at in terms of building a sock factory.
Yeah. Whereas I think TSMC's plans in Arizona are part of like a
7 to 10 year plan.
7 to 10 year plan.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. Obviously, with the news about computers and semis over the weekend, everyone, wanted to talk about one company and one company only. So we're going to do just that right after this. We're talking Apple when we return.
Market volatility is at its highest point since the pandemic. Keep it here for the most comprehensive coverage of the global trade war. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K is Saturday, November 8th, and registration is now open. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots will fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston today and reserve your spot or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's DAV 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston.
All right, so Opley, otherwise known as Apple, is a company that makes stuff. And most of that stuff is imported from China, about 80% of it. And before the announcement or the posting of the exemptions on Friday, you were kind of sitting around like, hey, how are you going to sell your stuff with these kinds of tariffs, given that you were talking about 145% tariffs from China? It was kind of a problem.
Yeah, a lot of people were doing some pretty complicated math. Like, all right, so what portion of these things are sold in the United States? What portion is made in India? Can they get around any of this for any significant period of time? And the answer seemed to be
not really.
No.
So now that you have these exemptions in place, a couple things become clear. Clearer. The first is that you still have the baseline 20% tariffs on Chinese imports that are in place. That is something that the president specified over the weekend, is that this was simply an exemption from the reciprocal matters, not from the baselines that are already out there.
Okay.
Other things. You immediately had a whole bunch of people talking all over social media about, hey, this is, because Apple can lobby and they get exemptions that smaller companies are not going to be able to get. And so small companies in other areas are just going to get absolutely punished, and large companies like Apple are going to benefit. You're going to see more consolidation and a bunch of problems with small business. I can buy that entirely. I can buy that entirely as a piece.
Now, I think it's also fair to say that there's no small smartphone makers out there trying to compete with Apple right now, but it doesn't really matter.
Not so much consolidation within this space, but much more just, hey, if you have 145% tariffs that are still in place on imports of Chinese socks, board games, this, that, and everything, a lot of potential for small businesses to get decimated.
Yep.
Other things that are just interesting to consider on this. And again, I'm not saying that this will happen, but I start playing through, okay, what are potential scenarios on this? Number one, remember, Apple's business is two pieces in China. The first is making the stuff. The second is they do sell a good deal of smartphones in China as well.
Yeah. Less than they did a decade ago, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Number one, what kind of anti-Apple sentiment builds up in Apple? Because they just announced, I think it was recently, that, hey, they were starting to see some positive momentum on Apple sales in China. Do you get a whole bunch of Chinese citizens that say, nope, we're not buying these phones out of support for, the Chinese government? Very possible. The other thing that is just interesting to consider is, and again, I'm not saying this will happen, but you just kind of go through your head okay, how do China and the U.S. try to leverage each other and create pain points for each other? And the interesting thought that I had was, what if the Chinese government says, okay, you're going to, lower tariffs on these goods that, you're exporting? The Chinese government comes out and is just fine, we're not going to allow the export of them.
Export controls. So, not unprecedented, by the way.
No, not unprecedented when it comes to the Chinese government.
In fact, over the weekend, and we'll have to dive into this more, but they set up brand new rules over the weekend for the export of any rare earth materials.
They literally just did it with another good, exactly.
So, they can very easily set this process up. That rare earth materials is something we'll have to dive into because it's going to take a little while to get through. But yeah, I mean, hypothetically, that could happen.
Other things that I was thinking, I'm just thinking of ways that this could potentially not work out as smoothly as everyone is thinking this morning, because my mind just goes to hey, what could go wrong? Because, it does that sometimes. Other things. So when you think about how Apple ships its phones, they don't load them onto airplanes and send them. They send them on big, old container ships.
Yeah.
Mike, are you ever going to have an entire container ship loaded up with iPhones?
Probably not.
No, that's too many iPhones.
Seems unlikely.
That's too many iPhones. You might have, 20 containers on a ship, maybe 40. I have no idea how many iPhone containers typically go out on a normal ship. But the point is, if all of the other commerce back and forth between the U.S. and China is kind of slowing to a crawl because no one wants to import at these tariff rates, how much does Apple need to pay in order to bring these phones into the U.S.? Do they have to pay full freight for an entire container ship, or do they figure out, okay, it's cheaper for us to send them on planes, but it's still a 50% increase in price relative to shipping normally? What does this do to Apple's margins when they're shipping stuff back to the U.S.?
I'm not going to say that's not a concern.
It's a lesser concern, but it's still one for Apple where you're
yeah.
What do I do here?
It exists because you're right. There are far fewer ships that are going to be taking trips to the United States from China at the moment, but
not even far fewer. Even if you have the same number,
yeah.
Okay, that ship is not profitable just sending one container of Apple goods.
Agreed. Yeah, look, we won't know exactly what all this
There's
looks
a lot
like
of weird
for
here.
In another few weeks. And again, I think the biggest piece to all of this that we are just now starting to understand is how China intends to retaliate. And
asymmetrically,
and that rare earth piece is so critically important here because they don't rely on the United States for selling this stuff. There is plenty of demand across the globe for high-tech magnet material and all sorts of wild stuff that goes into our missile defense systems and just things that you don't think about and take for granted every day. Plenty of other buyers for that the Chinese mining industry does not need the U.S. for, and it's a very interesting asymmetric response to tariffs.
So, again, we're still kind of in the early days of figuring out how this is all going to work. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we have Wall Street Watch, and then I want to read a quote just talking about some of the weirdness that we may see with supply chains again, and just some echoes of 2021 out there. Let's take a quick break. Wall Street Watch when we come back.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the rules of thumb that gets tossed around is, hey, just withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and you'll be fine. Is that true still?
It can be, but it also leads to some confusing conversations because that 4% rule, one, is dependent on a very specific asset allocation that was recommended by the person that created it. And two, a lot of those things have changed over time and doesn't really account for the fluctuations that every retiree sees, right? You might retire and not start Social Security right away, in which case your withdrawals could be higher for a period of time.
What about on the other side of the ledger when you look at expenses? A lot of people say, well, I expect my expenses to go down. Maybe I only need 70 to 80% of my pre-retirement income.
Yeah, I mean, this one makes sense, right? Like, you know, you're right now making money. You might be putting money into your 401k, paying FICA taxes that you won't in retirement. But this one especially, I have to say, varies a lot from person to person. That's 70 to 80% of pre-retirement income. And think about it this way, right? Do I still have a mortgage? Might that mortgage get paid off at some point in my retirement? What sort of debts do I have? Am I going to downsize to one car? Are we going to need both? What sort of travel am I planning on? And so that 70 to 80% rule can be a good starting point, but really you need to start with the budget.
Our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001 to request our latest guide, How to Build a Retirement Budget.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, after a historically volatile week, markets are currently well into the green, where the tech sector is seeing a lift after President Trump on Friday said electronics, including smartphones, computers, memory chips, and other categories of products, will be exempt from tariffs. However, that could be short-lived after Trump clarified these products are just moving to a different tariff bucket. At the moment, the Dow is up by just over 1%, or 427 points. S&P 500 up nearly 1.5%, or 77 points, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ is up 1.7%. Russell 2000 up by 0.75%. 10-year Treasury yield down by 8 basis points, now at 4.41%, and crude oil up about 0.5% higher, trading just below $62 a barrel. Apple is one of the biggest tech winners on the day in reaction to Trump's exemption from reciprocal tariffs for the time being. Apple up by 3%, while other chip makers, including NVIDIA, AMD, and Supermicro Computer, are also seeing gains. Best Buy up by 5%, and Dell Technologies up by 6%. Meanwhile, Intel shares are up by 6% after Bloomberg reported the chipmaker has agreed to sell a 51% stake in its programmable chips unit Altera to Silver Lake Management, as the struggling company begins to spin off non-central businesses and assets. Elsewhere, Goldman Sachs reported ahead of the open this morning, beating first quarter expectations on the top and bottom lines on stronger than expected equities trading revenue. Goldman shares up by 2%, and Pfizer up by 1% after the pharmaceutical giant announced it would halt development of its daily weight loss pill after a patient experienced a liver injury possibly caused by the drug during a trial. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
Just as we continue to talk a little bit about supply chains, I come back to this quote that Connor Sen brought to, not my attention, he put it all over social media, but I think it's just, again, remembering how things can move unexpectedly when you get into supply chain crises. And this was talking about gelatin.
Got it.
Which is not something that people think is like a need, but here's the thing. I'm going to quote here. Oddly enough, he told a story about gelatin. They were having a hard time getting gelatin in Mexico, and it's like, well, why can't we? Well, they're not slaughtering as many hogs. How come? Because they don't need as many hides from hogs that they use to make cars, and they don't need as many hides because they're not making as many cars. Why are they not making as many cars? Because they can't get the chips from Taiwan. And basically what you end up with is, hey, we can't produce the amount of gummy bears that we want because there's a semiconductor shortage. So when you think about like just the weird stuff that ends up becoming intertwined in this, there's a whole if you think about what companies actually do today that sell like anything complex in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not saying a gummy bear is, but whether it's cars, whether it's semiconductors, whatever it may be, their real expertise is in logistics and supply chain. Like, yes, they're really good at making the actual product, but like you talk to anyone about ASML, the big Dutch semiconductor equipment manufacturer, and what they'll tell you is, hey, they're coordinating like 80 different suppliers for all of these different goods, and they need to arrive at the exact precise time so that they can assemble the lithography machines and then send them to where they are. Same exact thing with Boeing, just as an example. Yep. Boeing, yes, they make 737s and 787s and yada yada, they don't make all of the parts for them. They've got 100+ suppliers for, hey, this company makes the nose. This company makes, the thing that goes into the nose. This one makes the wingtip. This one makes the flaps. They have all these different things that they coordinate and bring together. They are logistics experts as much as they are building experts.
Yep.
And so when you think about how this stuff can be disrupted by the imposition of tariffs on different countries at different rates, this is what I continue to come back to. Like, we have no idea what we are heading into as far as potential disruptions to supply chains once again.
Yeah. Now, I think there's been some very valid points and critiques brought up about previous administrations by this administration that I think are valid to acknowledge for a moment, right? Like the delicacy. If something's delicate, is it delicate?
It's not the delicacy.
How do you describe how delicate it is?
Delicateness?
Sure.
Delicatecy?
Of the
Delicatessen.
Nope.
Delicatessen.
It's also not delicacy, but it's not delicatessen. In any case, the fragility of the semiconductor supply chain
delicacy
is, I think, one of the big mistakes of the last 20 to 30 years of U.S. policy, right? We have ASML that is manufacturing all of the lithography machines, and we basically gave that technology for some reason to the Dutch to allow it to be done there. Taiwan's semiconductor and the concentration of semiconductors that are built in Taiwan instead of anywhere in the United States, and then the United States effectively needing to provide security guarantees there, at least in part because of that. Again, I think bad mistakes on policy and geopolitics that have been made by previous administrations over and over again. But we're about to really test just how fragile some of these things are. And the consequences apparently go all the way to gummy bears.
So
didn't know that until today. So
there's
thank
that.
you for covering that.
Let's talk about this piece here from Barron's. The bond market's rout is bad news for the U.S. economy. Very simple. If bond yields go up and it becomes more expensive to lend to the U.S. government, it then becomes more expensive for everyone else to borrow, since everyone else, by definition, doesn't have their own printing press and can't print money to get out of a situation where they can't pay their bills. And so what we have seen is things like mortgage rates moving back up. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage on Friday, Mortgage News Daily had it closing at 7.07%. That's up from 6.6% a few weeks ago, right as you're heading into the spring housing season. And so this is something where, hey, when you have, people that are on the fence about, should I buy a home? I'm a little uncertain about how this is going to play out. And then you add in, now I'm looking at mortgage rates in the 7s instead of the 6s. This creates drag in the U.S. economy.
And there's no easy fix to that situation either. I mean, obviously, you can do what you can to repair situations with your global allies that buy these bonds and keep those interest rates low. But, what can the White House do to unilaterally bring down interest rates? Nothing. I mean, they argue they can cut government spending to try and do that. They can bring down deficits in some meaningful way. But there is very little that the White House can do to prevent the 30-year mortgage rate from going higher from here. And in fact, some of the things that they want to do from a policy perspective are in direct opposition of that. The tax cuts being the biggest one, right?
Yep.
If you take a look at what's being proposed on the tax side of things, and if you discount the effect of revenue being raised from tariffs, because we don't know what that looks like yet.
Sure.
I believe both the House and Senate bills that were proposed, at least so far here through those processes, raised the 10-year deficits by, what was it, $2.5 to $4 trillion?
It was several trillion. I mean, they're still very early on, so we'll have to see, what comes out of that framework. But again, it's something where we've talked about this, where for the last 25 years now, there has been no credible plan to deal with both annual and cumulative deficits. And that's a stark difference from the 1980s and 90s, where regardless of party or ideology and this and that, you had basically every administration out there, Reagan, Bush 1, and Clinton, all, making tangible progress towards improving the deficit situation, even if in some cases, like Bush 1, it may have ended up costing him re-election.
Sure. None of that since then. And fortunately for those presidents, since Clinton, I suppose. There hasn't been much in the way of negative feedback because there have been foreign buyers to sop up
You've
all
started
of that
to get
supply.
some the last few years. Like, you started to get some signs in the last year or two of the Biden administration that, like, you were looking at and you're like, okay, like, now you got, I forget when exactly it was. It was sometime last year, I think, when interest expense surpassed federal spending on defense, which you kind of look and you're like, okay, so now we're paying more for the stuff that we've already done than for the actual capacity to defend ourselves. Like, that's not a great sign when that starts happening. So, again, it's kind of been this train moving in slow motion for the last 25 years now, but you're starting to see some things that are a little bit concerning that are out there, and they started to pop up in the last year or two, kind of in the last 2 years of the Biden administration, I'll say. So this gets you to, again, it's just there's no good and easy way out of this. We talk about this a lot. You've gotten to this point through decades of fiscal mismanagement. You are not going to have a painless and easy way out of it where you snap your fingers and, hey, we all got unicorns. Like, it's not going to happen. There is going to have to be some pain that we deal with, and we'll see how the Trump administration navigates kind of what the next 6 to 9 months of potential pain looks like as they're trying to, kick this off. Will it end up working the way they want? I have no idea. We're going to have to see how not just the next 6 to 9 months play out, but then like the subsequent 5-7 years. Like, this is not going to be over in a couple quarters as far as, how things are trying to be, put onto a more sustainable path. So we'll see what happens. But again, some choppiness that we're sorting through at the moment. Let's take a quick look. When we come back, let's talk about what is a recession anyways. Everyone loves to talk about it. Hey, we're heading into recession, Joe. Steve, I know there's going to be a recess. They're going to let us play on the slide. We'll talk about what a recession actually is after this.
Tariffs fears continue to grip markets. Get the latest straight from Wall Street right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Good piece in the Wall Street Journal that I think... Again, sometimes we call different publications after being like, hey, why would you publish this? This one, the opposite. What exactly is a recession anyway?
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting.
Yeah. So the mark of a recession is not actually a single technical data series that you can say, hey, with these specific conditions, it's definitely a recession, because there is a board of people, humans, who decide whether or not something is or is not a recession. A board of economists, based right out of here in Cambridge, that determine whether or not you actually have a recession. And there's a number of things that generally count towards it, such as GDP, such as unemployment, such as even other indicators such as spending and stock market declines factoring into it, but they generally describe it as a overall downturn in economic activity.
The big ones that they look at: employment, inflation-adjusted personal income. So, are you making more after accounting for inflation? Real consumer spending, again, real meaning not like real versus fake, but real is inflation adjusted. Real manufacturing and trade industry sales, and industrial production.
So, for example, 2022.
You had inflation-adjusted incomes going down.
Yep.
Because inflation was higher than income growth.
You also had two quarters of GDP decline.
You did. But you had employment going up, manufacturing going up, industrial production going up, and so they looked at it and said, yeah, this is, and by the way, this is like the same thing we said. We're like, hey, this is a really bad economy.
It's not a recession.
It's not really a recession because you still have an expansion that is happening in terms of economic activity. It's just, it feels worse because incomes are not keeping up with inflation, which makes things feel really bad. And GDP growth even was not keeping up with inflation, but it was because there was so much inflation, not because there was so little, nominal growth and stuff like that happening.
So I think one of the lessons from there is you really need some data on employment to weaken for it to really be considered a recession in my mind, and you just didn't in 2022. But look, the recession word is frightening because I think for most people, when they think about the word recession, they associate it, at least most adults these days associate it with one of two events, either 2008 or 2020. And 2020...
2001 also.
Yeah, I suppose. But again, the portion of adults today that are associating 01 with that, it's shrinking just because of aging and where everybody was at that point in time. There's fewer people that were, investing a heavy amount back then. And so the point is that not all recessions are equal, similar. And the other point would be that almost every mainstream or even non-mainstream economist out there right now is pointing towards a significantly higher risk of recession this year than they have at any point in the last several.
And the other interesting thing is that stocks are not really picking up on that at this point. I mean, we're sitting here and stocks have rallied the last couple days now. And so you've got the S&P 500 sitting at about 5450 at the moment, which, again, what happens to stocks in a recession? There's no one thing that definitively happens, but we generally see a couple things that occur. The first is that earnings estimates and actual earnings tend to decline, usually anywhere from like 10 to 20%. And the second is that multiples, how much people are willing to pay for those earnings, tends to compress as well. You see, earnings stocks typically trading, 13 to 16 times forward earnings instead of, 18 plus. So you've got conflicting signals that are being sent right now where stocks are not really screaming recession. They're screaming, hey, we're concerned about something, but we don't know if it's going to be a recession. And on the other hand, you've got a whole bunch of people in the last week or so that have said, yeah, recession looks a lot more likely. Stock's not really being priced that way.
If you're listening, we've been talking about this a lot, pretty much all year. But if you are growing concerned about the state of things and wondering how it might affect you in your personal situation, maybe you're on the verge of retirement, maybe you're just getting started on the savings path and trying to figure out how to play into all of this, give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a call. We'll sit down with you, assess your own personal portfolio as well as your own personal financial situation, and explain to you how we assess these things and deliver peace of mind to our own clients at Armstrong Advisory Group. The number is 800-393-4001. You can check us out online at armstrongadvisory.com. Book a time for a callback if you're busy right now. But again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Do we want to talk about Ray Dalio?
Sure.
Ray Dalio, quote, I'm worried about something worse than a recession. Is it a double recession, Ray? No, it's not that. Instead, what he's talking about, I'll quote him, we are going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order, and there could be some big disruptions because of that. So basically he's saying, look, there's a geopolitical realignment that could happen that could kind of rock the very foundations of the financial system and the broader economy. Possible. Like we've talked about how, the world is different now than it was 12 days ago before these tariff announcements, but we still have to see how a lot of this ends up playing out.
And good luck building a portfolio theory around it.
Yes, that too. Let's take a quick break here. When we return, we got a whole bunch to get to, an hour or two, so we'll do that just a bit.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home, and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com/promotions.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, why can't you just add your kids to your accounts or to your house deed?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. So people who do that understand with an account, right? You can put a joint name on the account. Now, that doesn't actually complete the gift because you actually have to take the money out and then the gift is complete. But when you set it up, yeah, the asset would avoid probate. But if something happens to the child, it's going to be, available. Half the asset would be subject to the children's creditor. So you don't want that. And secondly, if you only put one kid on the deed, you've likely disinherited the other kids. So it's not really good planning overall. Whereas if you put the house in the kid's name, now you've actually made a completed gift of half the house and would need to file a gift tax return. Number one. Number two, of course, it's exposed to the child's creditors and, yes, divorces. You could find yourself at some point owning half your house with an ex-in-law. Not sure that's a good way to plan. So please, put together trusts. Don't just throw names on deeds or on bank accounts because, as I always like to say, nothing good comes from giving assets away while you're living.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Hour 2 here on the Financial Exchange. It's Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. The Dow is currently up 457 point-a-roonies, about 1.1%. The S&P is up 68 points, about 1.25%. And the NASDAQ up 220 points, or about 1.3%. So all three major U.S. indices in the green as we kick off another week here. 10-year U.S. Treasury, seeing yields come in a little bit, making up some of the ground they lost last week. 10-year now at 4.405%, down 8.8 basis points. Mortgage News Daily reporting on Friday that the national average for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage stood at 7.07% by the end of the day. They update that every day, so we'll see where this move down in yields takes mortgage rates as we go through the day. We've got oil, West Texas Intermediate up 27 cents a barrel to 61.77. AAA national average for gas prices continuing to slide down another 0.5 of a cent, or half a cent, if you will, to 3.18 4/10. So, again, still no conclusive direction, but starting to move back down and reversing some of the gains that we saw over the last month or so. And we've got gold today taking a bit of a breather after hitting all-time highs on Friday, down $16.90 an ounce to $32.27.70. Anything else catching you all right, Michael?
Not market-wise. No.
The big news over the weekend was the announcement on Friday evening that was picked up on Saturday morning of computers and smartphones and things like that being exempted from the reciprocal tariffs that were added in. As you would expect, Apple stock up about 3.7% today. The interesting thing, the rest of the semiconductor space, not really as much movement as you would think to see upward. NVIDIA is up about 1.5%, but Broadcom, another company that's really benefited from kind of the whole AI boom, they're a big supplier of back-end products. They're actually down 0.33% today on the news. Qualcomm up 1.25%, AMD up about 3%. So again, you've got kind of a broad-based rally that's happening here, but it's not like it's just tech leading the way, aside from Apple, really.
Yeah, and I think that kind of makes sense. We had a whole lot of volatility over the course of the last week on these announcements of and then waiver of tariffs. I think a lot of that has burned off at this point, and investors are instead sitting here saying, really unclear what happens next. Let's take a wait-and-see approach seems to be the thinking, but that wait-and-see approach can only last so long should economic data on just the fundamentals outside of tariffs continue to deteriorate in the way that it has so far.
Piece here from Barron's. Another earnings season is here. Here's why the results don't matter as much this time around. And it's not saying that the earnings don't matter. It's just saying that the earnings don't matter. Really what it's getting at here is, look, it doesn't matter what companies tell us about their Q1 earnings.
True.
It's going to matter more than usual what they tell us about how their business has been in the last 2 to 3 weeks and what they expect for the rest of the year.
Yep. Do you expect any... I expect some real answers on the first question, 2 to 3 weeks. What have you seen over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks? Beyond that, for a very large number of businesses, isn't the answer just going to be, you're going to have to wait and see because our earnings could be anywhere around this number with, 70% to either direction?
Which, if that's the case, you're going to see companies just pulling guidance. This has been talked about a lot, but companies are not going to say, well, our earnings could be between $1 and $1 million a share. They're just going to say, we're going to pull our guidance. We'll update you when we know more.
Right. Which is perfectly acceptable.
Which is the responsible thing to do. Remember, there's no requirement that companies have to give financial guidance. Generally, they choose to because it helps to provide investors with more of a framework to evaluate the company and give clarity as to what management expects. But it's not a requirement that companies have to give guidance as to what the next 6, 12, or 18 months of earnings are going to be. That's something that companies choose to do.
There are a few companies out there that, it will not be surprising if we hear about going concern risks. They don't do that during earnings calls.
No.
They do that when they are worried about a going concern. It just means that, hey, we might not have a business model in the near future if they go out with that. But there are some companies there that, should they not get exemptions to tariffs, we talked about consumer products that import just about everything from China. It's a real question mark as to how something like that continues to exist for any meaningful length of time in this scenario.
It is. So I think that, things that we remember, the earnings season really kicks off in earnest next week. Next week and the week after are the periods in which the vast majority of S&P 500 companies are going to be reporting earnings. And I think things to look for are just, hey, what's the context of how your business has evolved over the last month or two? Do you have any sense as to, how tariffs may impact your margins? Are you able to pass these costs along, or are you being forced to eat them? What are you seeing as far as sales? Like, those are the questions that you want analysts to be asking on these different earnings calls. And you would expect to be able to get some answers on those questions, even if you don't get all of them.
Yep, there's going to be a lot of question marks, but yeah, that is what this earnings season is about, not how much did you earn in the first quarter.
Weak dollar wishes are scary when granted. That's a headline from Bloomberg, and it talks about how, hey, a weaker dollar can have some negative effects. The positive effects that the Trump administration is looking for. Weaker dollar means that you can export more easily because it becomes cheaper for international buyers to buy your stuff. It also is something where, from an earnings perspective, hey, if you are selling products into Europe, and remember, in Europe, you're selling in euros. That converts back to more dollars if it is a weaker currency, and so it helps corporate earnings from that perspective.
How does it help with the deficit?
Relative to
I'm just
other
thinking
currencies,
of,
it doesn't. It has no impact.
Well, I'm just thinking of if presumably a weaker dollar means inflation, then you are paying back loans.
Yeah. So remember, weaker dollar is relative to other currencies, not relative to
history,
what it used to be worth.
Right.
And this is why I don't love this piece. Back in the first Trump term, 2017, look at what the dollar did in 2017 in that year. It fell by about 10%. Does anyone look at 2017 and say, man, what a horrible year for the U.S. economy?
Right.
No, we don't. It was just fine. It was really good, actually. You were like on the cusp of, what was probably one of the 2 or 3 best economies that we've seen in the last 50 years. I put that like 2017, 2019 economy up there with 95 through 97, probably like 52 through 54. Like it's up there. I think it's 52 through 54.
Like,
I don't know.
We're just describing it here without explaining it. It was extraordinarily low unemployment, solid growth, and
no inflation.
I mean, not no,
like
very little
where
inflation.
You want it to be.
You can describe part of the 2020s in a similar context on the first two, but obviously the thing that breaks that argument is the massive amounts of inflation that we saw in 2022 and then continuing for a few years thereafter. There are a few economies that were chugging like those last 2010 years were.
Now, what this piece does get into is, hey, the 10% slide in the dollar over the course of 2017 was a measured and, coordinated and relatively slow push that happened over the course of the year. You do not see the dollar sliding 5% in the last week and a half as something that's necessarily comparable because it's compressed into a shorter period of time. It adds some additional concern. And so, yeah, there's a difference in the path and magnitude that we are seeing there. But a weak dollar in and of itself is not something that is inherently good, bad, or ugly for the U.S. economy. It can act as, any one of a million different things, depending on exactly how it's implemented and how it ends up playing out. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, it's trivia right after this.
Tariff fever is in high gear. We've got the latest on what might be next and how long it might last. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The breadth of the stock market sell-off in recent days hasn't been seen since the early days of the pandemic. And while it's easy to say don't panic, if you're concerned about your portfolio, given the impact of these tariffs, now's the time to have that conversation. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If the market correction has you anxious, or worse, rattled, give us a call at 800-393-4001. Let's get together and talk through your financial strategy, evaluate its strengths and weaknesses, and make decisions for the future that are in your best interest. These are challenging times, but we've dealt with them before and are prepared to deal with them again. Our goal is to help you protect the assets that you've worked so hard to attain. You can give us a call at 800-393-4001 and request a no-obligation consultation. That number again is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. And on this day back in 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth while attending a play at Ford's Theater. Trivia question today. What was the name of the play the Lincolns were attending at the time of the assassination? Once again, what was the name of the play the Lincolns were attending at the time of the assassination? Be the sixth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you get a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the sixth correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, we got a piece in Bloomberg talking about Goldman Sachs putting a price target on gold. How can a company called Goldman Sachs put a price target on gold?
They do see it going to not Goldman. An analyst at Goldman Sachs, which does not speak for the company as a whole, sees gold rallying to $3,700 an ounce by the end of this year, prices hitting $4,000 an ounce by mid-2026. Chuck, is this significantly more useful than me trying to predict the weather 2 years from now?
No.
Okay.
Just as an example.
Maybe a little bit more useful, but probably not significantly.
No. That would imply, and I'm not trying to knock the Goldman analysts because I'm sure they're fine at their jobs. It's not a them thing. It's much more that for the average person, the person on the outside, price targets on anything are about as useful as they don't provide any predictive value. And what I mean by this is coming into this year, the vast majority of S&P 500 analysts had the S&P 500 earning between 8 and 11% this year, closing somewhere in the 6,400 to 6,600 range. After the uncertainty of the last month and a half, you now have the vast majority of them talking about downgrading their S&P 500 estimates and talking about how recession's possible, and that could mean things are even worse for the S&P 500. So it's not that these are inherently useless, but I've talked a lot about how I despise end-of-year price targets for anything because it's not just that, hey, you may or may not hit that price target, but also the path to get there matters. As an example, let's say that the S&P 500 this year went up to 8,000 and then closed at 6,500. That's very different from the S&P going down to 4,000 and then closing at 6,500. The path matters in terms of how you feel, what happened in between. So, like, year-end price targets to me are kind of useless because they don't actually tell you anything about how you get there, and who knows if they're actually going to be accurate. The other thing is, generally, when you look at, the positioning that most analysts have on these things, they basically are always like, okay, long-term equity returns are somewhere around like 7 to 8%. We're going to be plus or minus a couple percentage points of there, and that's where we think the S&P is going to be. How does that give me anything useful?
It doesn't. Now, gold's different because there isn't that same long-term trend, but I think more useful. Give me a bull case and a bear case for gold. A bull case for gold, in my mind at least, is continued deterioration of geopolitical ties between the United States and other major world powers, continued deterioration of the dollar, maybe puts together a bull case for gold. A bear case might be the opposite of that. Return to global trade, return to low barriers to trade, and economic cooperation between nations might not be a great base case for gold. And then you've got a million different iterations between all there.
Well, also, here's the other thing. Like, everyone's talking about gold now because it's done well in the last couple of weeks. Was anyone, talking about gold this way 3 months ago? Not really.
Somebody buying ads on Bloomberg was.
It's fine. But. So it's, again, I think part of this is also you end up with people, it's not my own quote, but it's an analyst that I follow. I think she's from Money Magazine, but there's a great quote that this woman, Helene Meisler, uses, which is, hey, there's nothing like price to change sentiment. Easy for everyone to get all bulled up on gold when it's rallied the way that it has. It's a lot harder for people to talk about it during the times when it hasn't done anything. And so if all gold analysts are doing is responding to price change and it's affecting how they're, saying, hey, here's what we think is going to happen in the future, I just don't know that that's a useful signal for anyone.
I can agree there.
Piece that's going to bother a whole bunch of people. Your car insurance is likely to go up again. This one from the New York Times. And
the insurance rates, home or auto, have been on the move significantly nationwide for really since, when did we all start driving again? Like 2021 when they all started bumping up again. And then inflation hit, and on the homeowners insurance, obviously there's been a number of natural disasters. But now we're talking about tariffs and auto insurance.
So this is according to, I don't know who actually put this together, but there's an estimate. Oh, Insurify. Here you go. Insurify estimates that the premiums on auto insurance for this year will now rise at least 16%, or about $378 per policy, to almost $2,700 on average nationally. I can tell you that, having talked to a couple of people recently that have re-upped their auto insurance, I have a buddy of mine who his son has a 5-year-old Civic that he is driving, and the collision alone on that, again, granted it's, young driver and this and that, so,
sure,
take it for what it's worth. But again, it's a 5-year-old Civic. The collision alone on it is $2,500 a year now with a standard $1,000 deductible.
Good times.
And what you are starting to see is that, again, this is just because insurers don't want to get caught in another 2021 and 2022 where they lost tens of billions of dollars on auto policies. The reason being they collected premiums, car prices went up, repair costs went up, and then they had to pay out a ton of extra money because of those car prices going up. So they don't want to get caught in the same situation.
Yeah, you can rest assured that basically every insurance company in most states is going to the commissioner, and each state is a little bit different in terms of how this works, but they're going to that state's insurance commissioner and saying, look, tariffs are coming. We believe that replacement costs are going to go up, so we are looking to bump up prices for this type of driver, this type of car by X percent over the course of the next 12 months. And then the commissioner is going to push back and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. But they're not going to wait to see the prices of these things increase. I don't know if replacement costs have already seen that bump up in price, but they're going to say, look, we're tied into these prices for a year. Once we renew your policy that comes up in May, we can't touch that price again until May of 2026.
Right.
So we're not going to wait until then to bump your price up. We assume that costs are going to go up. We're going to take that increase now.
So don't be surprised if you have, renewals that are coming up in the coming months. Don't be surprised if you're seeing big jumps in those car insurance rates. And I mean, at a certain point, like I look at where these numbers are going, and I don't know how it's tenable for things to go in this fashion and for the U.S. to still see the same number of auto sales given where auto insurance rates are going.
Back to sedans.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
We'll take you back to sedans when we return.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the issues that we've seen for retirees in the last several years is significantly higher home insurance premiums and property taxes going up as well. How do people attempt to navigate this but still stay within the budget they had laid out for themselves?
Yeah, look, the cost of home ownership, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Whether you are buying a home for the first time or you are just seeing those insurance and tax rates that you mentioned going up, it is really impossible to avoid. And I think that's where that flexibility in the budget comes in and needs to be recognized. Because, for instance, you might have factored in a huge cost savings by moving to Florida a decade ago.
Sure.
A lot of that has been eaten up over the course of the last several years. And so you have to have a budget that can evolve with your lifestyle over time.
How often do you review that budget?
You know, I think it's important to at least get a grasp on it once a year. And you can really see costs fluctuate a lot during those periods of time. But those flexibility points are really important because you have to account for inflation, and different things inflate at different rates. So, for example, you might see that your costs of healthcare rise dramatically in your later years, both because you need more of it and because healthcare costs inflate faster than other types of costs. And you have to build those into the budget, even though you might be paying nothing for them today.
This month, our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. The guide again is How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia questions today was, what was the name of the play the Lincolns were attending at the time of the assassination? That would be Our American Cousin, which was a comedy and a satire about American life and culture. Tom from Norwood, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Tom. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, let's talk a little bit about kind of how retirees look at the stock market. I know that last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was out there talking a little bit about, hey, you know, retirees don't get nervous when the market declines. And having been in the business of financial advice for 15, almost 16 years, I don't know that that's really what matches up with what I've seen. It's not that retirees inherently panic during market declines.
But they do care.
They do care, and they do wonder, how is it going to affect my ability to do what I want to?
I mean, heck, we got a text last week from somebody saying I was planning to retire. I don't remember what the time frame was. It was like,
I think it was this year.
It was like, do I need to delay that?
Yeah.
So not only do they care, but they also make decisions.
They contextualize it.
Based on it.
Yeah.
I think it is fair to say that there are a large swath of Americans that believe fundamentally that some sacrifice in the stock market may be worth the conversation that's being had about tariffs and jobs and all of these different things. But that's a fundamentally different proposal than, oh, they just don't look or care about it. Like, plenty of people I've talked to say, yeah, it's going to suck for a little while, but you know what? I really think it's going to be better 10 years from now. And so I'm willing to absorb some of that suck for the time being in exchange for a better working environment or unemployment situation or, you know, whatever, you know, security situation, whatever you think is the end goal here. And I think, honestly, we've heard some of that honest assessment from the White House, but I think a little bit more of it, of, you know, asking for the American public to just hold on and deal with some economic pain to see this long-term thing play out might be exactly what's needed, rather than, oh, people don't care about that.
Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out this month called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing a retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now by calling 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699, or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Mike, I want to talk about this piece from the Wall Street Journal because we just gave some credit to the Wall Street Journal for, I forget what it was because it was 5 minutes ago and I can't
Recession.
remember what it. That's the one. Yep. What is a recession? I'm now going to talk critically about this piece because I don't think it's right, quite honestly. It's titled "Hollywood is Cranking Out Original Movies, Audiences Aren't Showing Up." And here's what it says. I'm going to quote here. It's talking about these two movies that just came out. Drop opened this weekend to an estimated 7.5 million domestically. One of two new movies based on fresh ideas that fizzled at the box office. The other was Disney's The Amateur, a spy thriller adapted from a little-known 1981 book, which opened to an estimated $15 million. So here's the thing. These movies are not disappointments. They're not. They're not going to make $157 million in their opening. They're also not supposed to. Michael, do you know how much Drop cost to film?
I have no idea.
$11 million. Do you know what it's brought in so far?
No.
$10 million. Now, that doesn't mean it's breaking even, because generally the way that it works with movies, whatever the production cost is, double that and you get distribution and everything else.
Okay.
But it's been out for 1 week, and basically within another 2 or 3 weeks, it will be profitable for who actually did Universal Pictures. So when you make an $11 million movie, you are not trying to make $200 million off it. You're not trying to make $500 million off it. The expectation on an $11 million movie is, hey, if we can make $30 million in revenue from it, that's a big win for us. You know, we're coming out ahead there. Likewise, the other movie that they talk about here, The Amateur. Do you know how much it cost them to make it?
No.
$60 million. It's made $32.2. So they've got a little bit harder road to sow there in terms of, yeah, there's an uphill climb, but when you make a $10 million film, you are not going to get big, crazy numbers from it because that's not how any of this works. And so I find this article fundamentally not reflecting that because it's just not a realistic expectation that they're going to make that much money here.
Would you agree with the sentiment, which I think this article overall is placing, which is movie theaters aren't working like they used to?
Well, here's the thing. So I was looking at this just because when you look at the story of American cinema, the general premise, especially through like really 1980s through 1990s, outside of, you know, recessions, you generally, and even during recessions, quite honestly, you generally saw consistent year-over-year gains in box office revenue. This continued up through 2019. Actually, 2018 was the peak, but that was just because I think 2018 was Avengers Infinity War, and
sure,
it's kind of hard to top that from a revenue perspective. It continued through 2019, and then the pandemic disrupted everything, and we've never gotten back to those levels. In 2018, American cinema did $11.89 billion in revenue. The peak that we've been at since was in 2023 when we did $8.9 billion. And that was because we had Barbenheimer that came out and, you know, drove Americans to watch atomic bombs and Barbie back to back. Not really, repeatable. So I do think, like, if you just look at what's out this year, and granted, like, this is the January through March period is kind of the doldrums. Like, your top 10 movies this year, Minecraft movie, okay, great, bring the kids there and zone out for 2 hours because, like, that's what it is. Captain America Brave New World, apparently horrible. Mufasa, The Lion King, came out last year, so not really this year's movie. Sure. Something called Dogman, it's fine. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Snow White, which obviously is, flopped. Moana 2, which came out last November. One of Them Days, don't know what that is. No clue. Nosferatu, sure, fine, whatever. And A Complete Unknown, which also came out last year.
I think my takeaway about the movie theater industry in general is I just don't know how there can be any expectation that it would perform as well as the days when
there was no streaming.
There was no streaming. Forget about even like the TV that we grew up with. Imagine the TV that Gen Xers or Boomers grew up with, where there are 5 channels that come in well in your home, and you flick between NBC, ABC, CBS, and whatever else was on at that time, and those were your options. It is a completely unrecognizable universe in the media landscape today compared to that period of time, and expecting that movie theaters, even if they start serving alcohol and deliver food to your seat, are going to continue to exist at the same rate is just mind-numbingly stupid to me. I don't understand how anyone can have that expectation.
But beyond that, if you have a low-budget movie, it's not a failure when it makes money. And that's what both of these movies are going to end up doing when it's grade, Mission Impossible 9, which is coming out this year. Hope it's better than the last one, because honestly, it was a franchise on the upswing for a long time, but the last one didn't really deliver, in my opinion. Ghost Protocol and what was the other one? They were up there, and there was like the 5th and 6th ones were fantastic. The last one, not so much. So I'm hoping that they stick the landing on it. But that's just me and my Mission Impossible love talking. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll do a little bit of Stack Roulette.
The global trade war is in full swing. How long will it last is anyone's guess. Keep it here for the most up-to-date information plus breaking news every day, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bend you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they are the perfect place to take your next vacation. Enjoy spectacular beaches, world-class cuisine, and a wide variety of water sports. Don't miss your chance to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mike, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
I want to talk a little bit about ride sharing and some of the potential pitfalls that I've heard voiced. So one of them, I speak regularly with somebody in the insurance, like homeowners auto insurance space, and he basically voiced to me like, look, I never take ride sharing because I have seen so many people that do ride sharing and don't actually tell their insurer. Meaning they are scamming their insurer and they're not actually covered for damages in the event that there is an accident of that vehicle.
Which means if you're injured in it, then
you got questions about how that's going to work, right? Like, you break your leg in a rideshare that's even fully registered with Uber but might not be insured for driving people commercially because that's pretty expensive. Then, there's some question marks there. This piece, though, I didn't know about. Facebook groups that exist for the express purpose of selling or renting out your rideshare credentials or license. So anybody that's never used Uber before, which I'm sure is a pretty small group, you call your Uber, you're given a license plate.
I bet there's a lot of people who haven't used Uber.
Probably, yeah, a face of a driver, and they pick you up in that space. And there's at least some sense of security there because you have that person's information on your phone. You can track your location. You can share your location. They've implemented a number of different things to try and make it safe. If you are then renting out your license because maybe somebody couldn't pass that same background check or because they don't have a worker's permit in the United States to be able to receive this type of income. Again, this is worldwide, so it's not just in the United States that this stuff is happening, but represents a genuine problem to the security on those platforms. And I think, calls into question, would I hesitate to use this on my own? No, probably not. Would I feel comfortable with like a 18-year-old daughter hopping into one? I think it's raising significant questions about the security of some of these platforms when this type of stuff exists.
This is something that I'm going to say completely unironically. Blockchain fixes this.
It would.
If you have a secure record that you show when it's been transferred to or from someone and that is only, registered to a specific device, then you know that you're getting the exact person that you thought you were getting.
Yeah.
And you can police this. Otherwise, if you can just log in as someone else's credentials and whatever, there's no way to be certain on this.
This is pretty fixable by Uber, by the way. Right, like
spend more money.
You could require multi-factor authentication for somebody to log into the app and like pretty quickly, fix this problem, because you might be willing to sell your login credentials, but you're probably not going to give the person your phone for the day in order to let them drive for Uber or Lyft.
Well, they require you to take a picture of your face before you go online.
Precisely, but what's happening is they are then selling those credentials, and so, some guy that looks like Tucker is buying those credentials and just hoping that the person won't notice.
I want to talk here a little bit about imposter voice scams. So these are something that, because of generative AI, are going to be popping up more and more. You get a call, and the spoofed caller ID, it looks like it's your son, your daughter, a cousin, whoever it might be, and they're telling you that they're in trouble and that you need to send money. It sounds just like them because, there's, a record of them online or whatever, or your husband happens to be a radio host where there's thousands of hours of recordings of my voice and yada yada. In any case, the fact is that because of how easy it is for these things to propagate now and for them to pop up, you need to be sure that you are actually speaking with your relative or friend before doing anything. So things that you generally see on these. Anytime that you get a call from, here's a good general rule of thumb. Anytime that you get a call from anyone asking for money, even if you want to give it to them, hang up the phone, say you'll call them right back, find their actual contact number in your phone or in your phone book or wherever you have it, and call them at that number. Because there is never anything so urgent that you need to actually give them money while on that call right then.
True.
Like, even if my own family called me saying, like, we need money right now, like something bad's going to happen, hold on, can I call you back? And then I will call you back in 1 minute. Other things that I do think are good ideas that this piece mentioned. You got to have some kind of family code word.
That's terrifying to think about. But yeah,
it is. It could be hippopotamus. It could be eggplant. It could be
chicken wing.
A chicken wing. It could be anything. But
hot dog and bologna.
Have something out there that is a code word so that you know that you are actually speaking to your people. And don't ever write it down. Don't ever put it in your phone. Just know that that is your family's code word. It's something that has to be easily remembered by, the members of your family and this and that and things along those lines. Other things here. It's also something where, hey, if you're trying to get in contact with the person who might not be, the person who you think they are, and you can't, like, just wait a second. Like, there's nothing that requires money to be sent instantly ever.
We've got to be pretty. I actually don't know, but I called Fidelity Investments the other day, where I have a personal account there, and had a question, and they still have this feature of your voice is your password, where I was able to repeat a few phrases and they were able to verify me without asking for any password there.
Better be getting rid of that.
I would assume that they are, or that they have some way of doing this even with this voice imitation software. I don't know the answer, but it sure would be nice if there were an app on my phone that could listen to my conversation and tell me whether or not it's a AI version of someone's voice.
Taking a look at markets, off their highs now. All three major indices up about 1/3% after being up more than 1% earlier in the day. We're done for the day. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.